It's Sunday the 20th of the 3rd, 2025. The time is 5 minutes past 10. Happy Mothering Sunday for all of you around the world who are celebrating. Of course it's a man's world, but it wouldn't be nothing without a woman or a girl. Let's talk about some F1 because there are very many F1 centric threads at which we need to pull. We've got to talk about Ferrari and pressure cooker settings on the likes of Frederick Vasseur and by extension vicariously the one that they call modern day Jean Alesi, aka Charles Leclerc, and Sir Lewis, Carl, Davidson, Hamilton. So too pictures have been taken around one equities of that SF25 car. So too we'll touch very quickly on Helmut Marko giving an interview at Formel.de. We'll talk about that more later because your boy hasn't had a chance to dissect for it and diatribe yet properly. However, let me say this first and foremost around Kimi Antonelli. I've been reading a lot about that chap. The F1 press and media are getting their arms around him now. You saw during FP1, the Italian Grand Prix, that was one of the rare occasions that the more press and media focus on Kimi Antonelli as versus Sir Lewis, Carl, Davidson, Hamilton. I would argue that, listen, winds of time and change in F1 sometimes happen arbitrarily, and as one empire, aka the Bulls that are red, seems like it's coming to an end. Ironically, Toto, the boy who cried wolf, by dint of his new charge, Kimi Antonelli, seems to be doing one of these momentum settings, parabolic settings. It feels like the one thing that Toto, the boy who cried wolf, wanted was a brand new, young, hungry lion, get his hands on the next one. And the press and media seem to be thinking that Kimi Antonelli could be that. Yeah, of course he looks like Ayrton Senna, but this is a Apophenia, right? The fact that he bears resemblance to one of the greatest F1 peddlers to ever pedal means nothing in reality. Indeed, there is always going to be a disconnect between theory and practice. That ultimately means nothing. But over the first two races, he's been nothing short of God tier, right? And then conversely, when you look over at the Bulls that are red, the Empire, no, the house that Christian Horner built, everything looks like it's crumbling. Let me tell you what Helmut Marko said again summarily. We'll dive deeper into this later, but I think it's important in the first instance to cover what I know in real time. Here's what Dr. Helmut Marko said, that yeah, it was brutal after firing or demoting even Liam Lawson after two races. But going forward, the car is difficult to drive, and moreover, not just is it difficult to drive, but it's not a fast car. And because of that, the discrepancy between Max and Liam Lawson just kept getting bigger and bigger. We tried everything to help out Liam, to support him. We tried different setups, but the circumstances around the first two races weren't necessarily very kind to the youngster. He didn't get a lot of track time, did he? And then he was thrown into a sprint race weekend during which you'll only get one FP1. Techie things. We tried different setups. We saw that setup just made the car slower, and even then Liam Lawson couldn't tame for the fire-breathing dragon that is the RB21. Helmut Marko said that the decision made amongst C-suite exec level Red Bull Racing bods was a unanimous one, because even after changing for the setup and trying to smooth the path of Liam Lawson, Liam, the dude that we said we hired because of his mental fortitude, not insubstantial mental fortitude, that Liam on the back of all the chaos it started to look like a battered boxer. And what have you got to do with a battered boxer? You've got to take them out the ring, Helmut Marko said. But Liam Lawson will be all right. Dr. Helmut Marko, consultant of Red Bull GmbH, continued, because as were Gasly and Albon, they went on to do good things, and more than likely when you put him in that car at Suzuka, the Racing Bulls car, that's more benign, less of a devil, less of a 911 Widowmaker as far as its handling dynamic, Liam Lawson might go well. And I think this is the problem for Red Bull going forward. Imagine a world where they've just demoted Liam Lawson and then he out-qualified Tsunoda-san, the man that they've just promoted, because now he's wrestling that chariot, that RB20, that 911 Widowmaker, so front-end-y, so difficult to steer as far as its instability at the rear, because only one man can handle that car. Slave for that fire-breathing dragon. He has a name, and his name is Max Verstappen. Let me tell you what's going on with Max very quickly. A couple things. Max has said if indeed he's to stay in F1, then V10s would be a bonus. Everybody likes the sound of V10s. But to that, many of the F1 community are saying, how convenient that Mohammed Ben Sulayem, in and amongst all the chaos about his role and his organisation, that there are NDAs, that there's potential legal action in the offing, that now Mohammed Ben Sulayem wants to throw the F1 community a bone and say, have a look at this. Misdirection. V10s, yeah, that will win them over. Do you know what I mean? It feels very convenient that now more than ever, Mohammed bin Sulayem is so keen to switch, change the narrative. Oh, and by the way, chaos at Ferrari. Lewis Hamilton has just bought himself a new house in Milan, and that bodes well for him. I'm glad that Sir Lewis Hamilton is settled, because he's going to need to deal with all of the ensuing chaos over at Scuderia. I'm telling you, it's going to get to peak. I was listening to a technical podcast over with the boys and girls at the race, Ed Straw settings with Gary Anderson. Ed Straw was very specific, no particular with his words. He was in Bahrain, understanding what the SF25 looked like in real time as far as testings. Here's what Ed Straw said, and again, all F1 journos are created equally, but some are created more equal than others. Ed Straw is one of the goodest ones, I promise you. Here's what he had to say about his experience, first-hand trackside, looking at the SF25 in testing. He said they've got issues with aerodynamic stability, so too mechanical. He said that of the car and its handling dynamic, that it looked like a capricious vehicle, that it doesn't just do. It lacks what the MCL has engendered, embedded within it as far as its dynamic, that Lando or OJ can just jump into the car and drive it, and it's just easy. It just does. He says, and again, this is Gary Anderson, again, one of the go-toest one. He says that of the SF25, that it just looks like it lacks rhythm, that when you get to the edge, it's mercurial, like a box of chocolates, mentioned No Name's Forrest Gump. You never know what you're going to get. And this gives rise to a couple of different things as far as the pressure on Ferrari. We've already talked about Frederick Vasseur now. You don't get many seasons at Ferrari as team principal, especially if you're not bringing in silverware. This will be his third. By my reckoning, on average, Arriva Bene, Binotto, Stefano Domenicali, when they didn't win silverware, their average length of tenure was 3 years. This is Frederick's third. He won't get too much longer than this unless he bring in silverware. That's why I think there was such a focus on them winning the constructors, or just missing out on the constructors in 2-4. That mattered for Frederick Vasseur, because his charge now, his remit, is to alleviate, just as Jean Todt did, the pressure from all of his minions, his direct reports, and his technical director. Because, by the way, the Italian press and media don't mess about. We've spoken about this already now. They go hard in the paint. Why? Because the red car, their red overalls with the yellow badge, black prancing horse atop, means something to them. It's different from the world of Formula One fans supporting a Mercedes just because their driver, Sir Lewis Hamilton, is there. And as soon as Sir Lewis leaves, everybody takes off the black cap with the silver arrow on and puts on a red cap. No. This is different. This is a lifelong relationship between the Italian Tifosi and Ferrari, because Ferrari is their team. Rob Smedley said, listen, if you're winning at Ferrari, then you'll never need to buy a drink nor a meal at Milan or Rome, wherever you are in Italy. You are loved, no adorned. You are a patron saint, Leclerc or Hamilton. But if you are losing, Rob Smedley said, they will spit at you in the street. You can't show your face. Now, Ferrari, as at March 2025, they're not there yet, but they are close to. Double DNF settings. What's that about? That's bringing shame on the family name. And now we find out that the Italian press and media are calling them out as such. Here's what they're writing. for Loic Serra, and again the dude hired with a view to optimise for the way in which the SF25 interacts with its rubber. Loic Serra, technical director, that for him the pressure is enormous after an encouraging 2024 season and a disastrous start to 2025. The SF25 seems to have fallen victim to technical choices that are backfiring on Ferrari. Ergo, here's what they mean by this: they weren't ambitious enough. You see over the road at McLaren, or over the lake at McLaren, that they've been super ambitious with their suspension setup by dint of the fact that they had pull rod on the front for the longest time already. They're at a different stage as far as expediting for their learning curve and optimizing therefore for lap time in their MCL39 iteration. This time last year, Ferrari Scuderia was still barking up the wrong tree. Push rod was their charge. That was their lot. Oh, pull rod, no, we'll continue barking up this incorrect design philosophy tree, just as did the boys and girls from Brackley and Brixworth with their zero pod. We've seen things in the CFD and the wind tunnel that leads us to believe that we don't need to leverage the god tier meta as put forth by Adrian Newey. No, we'll continue. Pull rod, whatever, pull rod suspension, you lot crack on. Now they've got pull rod, but they haven't optimized for it. The Italian media are calling bull feathers on this. Why didn't they become super ambitious as far as the anti-dive, just like McLaren, with a view to mitigate for the rate at which the tyres deg? For that is currency, is it not? Oh, and by the way, as if it wasn't pressurised enough over at Scuderia Ferrari, at the altar, of course, of the Tifosi, them being Italy's team and now underperforming in real time. In fact, before I show you this, let me tell you this as well. A lot of people are still calling into question, so too Jeremy Clarkson, why Lewis Hamilton was god tier during the sprint and then no performance during the race. That doesn't make sense. Of course, owing to fuel loads, you've got to jack up the car, but they jacked up the car and still got disqualified. That smacks of them not having reappraised for their circumstance, doing like Red Bull and the RB20 and not even quite understanding. If one car gets disqualified, cool, but then Charles gets disqualified for being underweight. Have they got these numbers at hand? Are they even allowed to use scissors? This is numpty settings, very, very noddy, and the Italian press and media are not going to stand for it or accept it. Nor should Charles, nor should Sir Lewis, both of whom are infinitely better than that. Let me show you this as well, because it's getting techie. And again, this might be a nothing burger. We know that the F1 paddock is super incestuous, and they're always having conversations with each other in real time. However, the Italian press and media took this picture of Frédéric Vasseur talking to the one that they call Pierre Vacher. This happened during even the last Grand Prix. Now, we know for a fact that Frédéric Vasseur has been doing his damnedest to sign this chap, one of the goatiest aero minds, some said, before his recent underperformance at RB, at Red Bull, the house that Christian Horner built. Now, this is what we know. There is friction between Christian Horner and Pierre Vacher. Christian Horner will be looking to Pierre Vacher and Enrico Balbo to build, to carry the momentum on, or to fix for some of the travails of that Adrian Newey machine. Hitherto, up to date, they haven't been able to manage it, nor have they been able to fix for the multitudinous iniquities, both mechanical and aerodynamic, of that RB21 understeer settings. Now Max is saying that, you know what, it's nothing to do with the balance. The car ain't even fast. And what's worse is we don't understand why. This is a problem. Alcoholics Anonymous, right? My name's Cameron and I have a problem. Here, therefore, is how I fix for it. They're not even there yet. So Christian Horner's giving the one that they call Pierre Vacher the side eye? No. Which is causing this sort of stuff to happen. Now, Frédéric Vasseur's always been on to Pierre Vacher, but this conversation will be made more pertinent, more urgent, because of the fact that the pressure cooker is being dialed to 12 as far as Ferrari. They don't have another 12 months to deliver. They need to deliver now. And I think, ladies and gentlemen of the F1 jury, that photo is telling. Pressure cooker settings. F1 is a piranha's tank. No, shout out to Ron Dennis. And what have you done for me lately is all that matters. As we round third base, let me show you this picture as well. Because again, it's techie this. I don't know how I feel seeing Yuki Tsunoda in them their overalls. This is the opportunity that he deserves on merit. He's been really, really good thus far, losing no less than 18 points in the driver's standing to the lack of strategic awareness and poor decision making of the team for which he's been driving. Now he's got the big seat alongside Maximilian Verstappen. Let's see what that dude can do. I'm reserving judgment. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but do you think that Tsunoda-san could potentially do what Max Verstappen can in that RB21? I'm not so sure. I don't think so. It's tough. It's a difficult job that nobody's been able to do properly. Not Albon, not Gasly, not Checo Perez, not Liam Lawson, not even Danny Rick, who once upon a time was definitely one of the goatiest ones to have ever done it now. So how do we expect Tsunoda-san to do it again in pressure cooker circumstances at the Suzuka Grand Prix? You can see these bollards being put down now, and the notorious, now famous Ferris wheel in the background that so characterises Suzuka. It's going to be chaos this weekend coming. I cannot wait for it. However, let me say of Red Bull, if we're talking pressure cooker circumstances, as follows. There might be a reprieve for Max and Red Bull in the short term. Again, it feels like the racing gods may well have been smiling down on Red Bull, particularly in the hands of Max Verstappen. What are you on about, Cameron? Well, 70% chance of rain at Suzuka, the Japanese Grand Prix, on the Sunday race day. And that's got to mean something. We saw in the dry at Australia that Lando Norris and Ojo Piastri were a gazillion miles down the track. When the track dried up 16 seconds like this, that's how much they gapped Maximilian Verstappen, five-time champion. That means something. The MCL39, super dominant. However, when it's wet, when it's monsoon conditions, it lends itself to the likes of Sir Lewis Regenmeister settings, and so too Maximilian Verstappen. He will be God tier if it rains. You'll recall 2022, I want to say, or 2023, round the outside was Max Verstappen's lot on Charles Leclerc into turn one with a full tank of fuel, by the way. And then he proceeded to gap the rest of the field with a view to win himself a championship. It was chaotic scenes. Nobody, as at March 2025, is better than Maximilian Verstappen in their monsoon wet conditions. So in the immediate term, and again under the umbrella heading of potential performance clauses, Max Verstappen needs to be within the top three in the driver's standing if indeed he's not to effect for that performance clause, as at the end of race 3, some say. It's going to get techie. The weird and wacky world of F1 continues to baffle. What are we doing here?